Head athletic trainer Jeff Snow is our guest here. And Jeff, we've talked over the years about your role at William Jewell College. Can you kind of, again, reflect on that a little bit and talk a little bit about what the athletic trainer at Jewell does?
Our job, we're that first line of defense. You know, we cover the practices and the games, and we see everything from illnesses to broken bones, kind of that jack of all trades. Kind of the joke that I say is I never know what's going to walk through the two big red doors. You know, take Jessica the other night, for example, at halftime of the basketball game. We never know who we're going to treat, and so which makes my job very exciting, which makes one of the reasons that I love my job. Having said that, though, also is one of the more frustrating parts of my job, in that my day never goes as I have planned. But it keeps exciting, keeps me on my toes, and we do all the injury evaluation, treatment, rehab, getting them back on the court, back onto the playing field. We work very closely with a team of doctors, both orthopedic surgeons and general medical doctors, to make sure that we're providing the best possible health care.
Well, like you said, you are the first one that is there for our athletes. And is there a peak season? Because, and where I'm going with this is, football would seem to be, with the contact involved, a time when you would be extremely busy. Is that kind of your peak season in the fall?
Yeah, I would say in terms of the number of injuries that we see, the number of athletes per day, the fall is definitely the biggest, especially late fall, because basketball has already started. You know, as you know, there's really no off-season in college sports, so all the quote-unquote off-season sports are doing their off-season conditioning, baseball and softball, and then obviously with the number of football injuries and the severity of those injuries, that's definitely the busiest time. And then springtime, when spring football gets back into it with baseball, and those basically late October to early November, and then again in March are typically our heaviest times.
For parents who aren't around all the time, I know you try to cover each and every practice, all of that kind of stuff. Do you have any idea how much time you all put in a week?
We track it somewhat informally, to be honest with you. More from a staffing standpoint. We document all of our injuries. Every athlete that walks in the training room is documented, whether it's for an injury evaluation, for a treatment, for a rehab. That's all documented. So we try to maintain the best possible records we can in terms of the number of athletes we see, what they've had done, and then how many hours we work. It's probably a lesser part of that. Our goal for that is to be able to prove to our administration the service that we're providing.
But can you kind of tell us what the policy is, though, as far as trying to cover practices, and what do you try to do as far as covering each and every practice, and of course the games?
It's a challenge. Obviously, we've got 18 sports, 20 sports, something like that now. We've only got 2 certified athletic trainers. We assign ourselves to the sport of highest risk. And no disrespect to tennis and golf, I would love to go cover the golf and tennis practices, but it doesn't make any sense when I've got football practice, things like that. So we look at number of athletes, we look at the injury risk, and then we assign ourselves accordingly.
Yeah, I'd never thought about that. I think that's a good way to put that, and yeah, I hadn't thought about that either. Jeff Snow, our head athletic trainer at William Jewell College, is our guest. And I think as you were talking, I finally caught on with what you were talking about Jess's having to deal with an injury the other night against Rockhurst. And this is a little humorous, so why don't you tell us what happened?
Well, I wasn't there. Jessica was the athletic trainer for the game the other night, but from what I can gather, the game was sponsored by Chick-fil-A, and they had their mascot there, and I'm not sure the exact nature of the injury to the mascot, the cow, but she went down, I guess, during the halftime, and Jessica was there to provide some service to her, some health care. So again, it keeps our job exciting, and definitely not something that we do every day.
Generally, Joel Lucan, I think, told me afterwards it was something to do with overheating a little bit, so it turned out to be nothing as bad as it might have been, but it was kind of an interesting situation. You were attending to the cow mascot at midcourt.
Well, I don't think many people realize, and I didn't either, until how hot those costumes are and how much weight the people can lose. I know I've heard reports of Casey Wolf during a home Chiefs game can lose 10, 12 pounds. That's a lot of water weight to lose.
Why don't you order me one then?
Okay. But yeah, those guys can get dehydrated pretty easily, especially in the outdoor sports and whatnot. But Yeah, that's, obviously the dehydration is a big part of what we do in all sports.
If a high school kid was going to come to you and say, hey, I'm thinking about going to college, what is the number one thing that you would like me to do as an athlete, overall to not be injured? What would you tell them?
I think a really good strength and conditioning and flexibility program is paramount. I have noticed in the last year and a half to 2 years with our strength and conditioning coach Scott Odell here, I've seen a significant decrease in our number of soft tissue injuries, muscle, tendon type injuries, strains, those types of things. Those have gone down dramatically. I can't tell you percentages and numbers off the top of my head, but the majority of the injuries that we see now are trauma, a sprained ankle, a broken bone, those types of things. So having the strength, having the flexibility, having those qualities that'll keep you healthy throughout the entire season has been great for us. I love my job, but if we can keep you healthy and keep you on the court, then that makes everybody happier. The coaches are happy, the players are happy, and Coach Adele's been a very, very big part of that.
Jeff, with the move to the NCAA, I'm sure that parts of your job have changed also. What are the emphasis areas that the NCAA is pushing as far as training staffs?
There's not. One of my goals, I guess, was to see if the NCAA had any hard and fast rules on ratios of athletes per athletic trainer, and they don't. We really haven't had to change our day-to-day operation at all. Not significantly. We've done a better job of tracking the injuries and doing the documentation. We've instituted new policies in terms of concussion management, drug testing, and some of the other not so common ones, the pregnant athlete and those types of things. So it really hasn't changed our day-to-day operation, and we just put pen to paper and wrote Jessica, especially, and I, but more so Jessica this past summer, we spent a lot of time researching and writing our policies. And what we realized when we were doing through all this process, doing all the research and seeing what other NCAA schools do, is that we really weren't different than what anybody else was. We just didn't have a policy written for it. And so it was a combination of working with our upper level administration and our staff to write those policies. The concussion policy was one of them. We didn't really change how we handle the concussed athlete in terms of return to plate activity or return to the classroom, but we didn't have it clearly written in a policy, and that's been the biggest key right now, is getting all that done, and that's paramount to keeping with the communication between the coaches, the administration, the faculty members, the athletes, and the parents.
I know you have talked to the staff a couple of times about two issues that come up. One we don't hear a lot about, but have been hearing more, and that's the sickle cell trait that you're looking for. But also the drug testing is maybe a new emphasis at Jewell.
Right. Along with the NCAA, there's mandatory random drug testing. Now, we haven't had one of those yet, but we could have one at any time. NCAA is a lot more structured in those regards, in that they've got a very specific banned list of substances that you cannot use, and ignorance is not an option. We stress to our athletes that supplements are not regulated by the FDA, so those companies can put in there whatever they want. And so to be very careful with that, and we've worked very closely with Drug Free Sport, which is a company here in Kansas City who the NCAA contracts out their drug testing to, and they've been a great help for us in terms of being a resource in terms of what drugs may be banned, what things the athletes can and can't take. So that's been very, very helpful.
Jeff, you had a chance to come on this trip, the Vegas trip, with your wife, Jill. Tell us a little bit about Jill and your family.
Well, Jill and I have been married 5 or 6 years now. We've got 2 beautiful boys. Cooper's 3.5. Ethan's about 1.5 or so. Grandpa's got them this weekend. Very, very grateful for that. We hadn't had any time away from the kids much lately in about the last year or so. So Grandpa's got the kids this weekend, and we were able to get away here a little bit.
Going to do anything exciting besides sit and watch basketball, and as we're doing right now, watch basketball practice?
That's going to be the majority of it, honestly. One of my college roommates actually lives here in Vegas, so we may meet up with him for some dinner. But other than that, probably not a whole lot. Basketball's the focus of this trip.
How is it that you got to come and Jess did not?
Well, we split up these road trips. We had 4 of these big overnight road trips this season, and Jessica took 2 of them, and I took 2 of them, and years past she had got to go to San Diego, and she got to come to Vegas last time, and so I felt like it was my turn a little bit, and so it all worked out well.
Jeff Snow has been our guest here, and he's at most Cardinal events, and also, as we talked about, you keep your eye on the Mascot this weekend, okay?
Absolutely, thank you.
Jeff, thank you. And we'll be back with more in just a moment on the HyVee Halftime Report.